Hello everyone and welcome to my IBF project. My project is about deaf people in a hearing world. I'm excited to be finally sharing this project with hearing people because I genuinely want them to realize how unfair it is for deaf people to get mistreated in our hearing world. They are disrespected very often and it is very unfair. So finally I'm going to share my thoughts and opinions about this, and I hope you guys enjoy my project. My goal is to try and get hearing people to become more aware of the deaf community and culture. Acknowledge, respect, and accept it. I noticed that the majority of hearing people have close to no idea on how it's like to be deaf. A lot of people even think you need Braille to understand what's happening. I have a deaf friend that is going to be joining me for this project, and he is willing to provide his opinion on this and share with the world what it's like for him to be deaf. Привет, это добро пожаловать на мой проект. Вы, наверное, не понимаете, что я сейчас говорю, потому что вы не говорите на таком же языке, на котором говорю я. Вы сейчас понимаете, что я говорю? Наверное, нет. А теперь вставлю вот это. Теперь вы понимаете, что я говорю, потому что я все перевожу субтитрами. So I just spoke another language, and you didn't understand what I was saying because I was speaking another language. Did you understand what Jared was saying? Probably not, because he was speaking another language. I don't speak the language he does. But with the help of closed captions, we can all understand what's going on and speak everyone's language, because captions give us access to any language. So when Jared is signing, I understand what he's saying because there are closed captions. Or I learn sign and then I understand what he's saying because I learned his language. So if you learn Russian, you'll understand what I'm saying in Russian because you learned the language I was speaking. It's pretty simple. If you can't speak English, you won't understand what I'm saying right now. And if I have closed captions, then you will understand. None of us have really stopped and thought about what it's like to be deaf, because we might have met or seen or noticed a deaf person in public, but have we actually thought about how they feel? Because it must be so hard for them to communicate with hearing people when they are deaf. And this is why I'm making this project, make hearing people more aware that there are people that cannot hear. Imagine having to go through drive-through in a fast food restaurant and having to skip the speaker and drive up to the window and try to order through your phone notes or a piece of paper and getting declined service because you just simply cannot say what you want to order in words. I honestly don't think it's that hard to take an order from a deaf person at the window because it doesn't happen very often, and if it does, it's not their fault that they cannot speak, and I think we should all be willing to accommodate. Another example of how deaf people communicate sometimes is through an interpreter. So I call this special Canadian service that provides me with an interpreter for my deaf friend, and he can communicate with me through that interpreter. So here's an example of me asking him a question and him answering me through an interpreter on the phone. So my inquiry question for my project is, what's it like to be deaf in a hearing world? So if you were to answer that question, how would you answer it?
Okay, let me think here. Being deaf in a hearing world, a lot of more control. You know, deaf hearing people have more control than deaf people do. We struggle a lot in our community. We're sort of, it's kind of like we lack a lot. We try, to be, to do what we can for everything to be equal. But hearing people look at us kind of like we're mute. You know what I mean? And all these labels that they have for us. And these words really don't actually fit, and they feel like we can't, but we can. You know what I mean? We can do things. we can do everything that hearing people can do, and hearing people look down on us. And like, there's some can, but most of them, no, you can't. And so we really struggle a lot to sort of make it and to be successful. It's not easy. We have to have a lot of patience, and we have to get a lot, we have to sort of be patient with the world.
It's very difficult for deaf people to live in a hearing world. That's why a lot of them surround themselves with other deaf people and make their own small community and culture. That's a small community where they all speak the same language they're fluent in, ASL. They go to the same schools and colleges. It's hard for them to interact with the bigger world that's hearing, because obviously there are less deaf people than there are hearing. There are thousands of kids in school that are hearing and only a few hundred that are deaf.
Sometimes it's like we'll never get a job. I know that sometimes they prefer hearing people, but let's just say even that hearing person has bad behavior, or maybe they're in school, their attitude is bad. But if a deaf person has a good attitude and is a good worker, they're still going to take the hearing person over the deaf person. Why? Because it's communication. I can't hear anything. I can't, talk with clients. I can't, but it doesn't matter how good I am because I can't communicate with spoken English. And it seems like they say that we're slow, but progress is also slow.
What does it feel like, let's say, 5 hearing friends and 5 deaf friends? Like, what do you think that would be like? Let's say you guys met in a field and you were supposed to play a game together.
Kind of normal, you know what I mean? Like we have a group. We have a group of the hearing people. We have the group of the deaf people. We kind of come together. It's kind of normal. The thing is, it's just communication. We can sort of gesture and communicate, and we tend to able to work it out. And hearing are and they watch easier to sort of gesture with hearing people and sort of get the point across. The deaf community is very small and close. Deaf people are a lot like a family because we're a small group and we all know each other. In the future, things we graduate and then we go forward and we don't forget each other. Like go our separate ways. We don't. We always stay together.
If you could change everything to make it accessible for you, what would you like to be changed?
I'd like restaurants, if they could, sort of deal with the deaf people, meaning, just be happy to write back and forth or, just learn a few signs. Because I don't have to be so formal with deaf, but, play around. We're all human. The deaf community, it's really strong. And it shows that, we just still need a communication access, closed captioning for things that are on TV, maybe.
Not force them to learn sign language or anything, because I can't do that, but I need to make them aware.
You have to sort of, let me think here. I guess not force people, but encourage, you know what I mean? Encourage sign, because you never know if, for example, you have some friends or you got pregnant or something like that, and let's just say your baby's born and the baby's deaf. You know what I mean? You got to be ready to sign with the baby. We're never going to force, we just want to encourage people. It's not hard to learn. It's hard for us to speak, but it's not hard for hearing people to learn how to sign. But we can't decide to force people. We can just encourage people and sort of have them understand our perspective and understand deaf culture. They have to realize that when you're born deaf, it's not my fault. You know what I mean? It's just a body. It's just a body condition. It's just a body situation. I'm not responsible for being born deaf. People do cochlear implants and you'll become hearing. No, that's not how cochlears work. If some people go ahead and get cochlear implants, fine. Still doesn't mean that you're going to speak. I guess in a way I feel blocked, in a way they sort of leave me out most of the time. Mostly I feel kind of ignored. I see people talking, and they're talking right in front of me, and I can see that. These are even my friends that even know a little bit of sign. I stand there and, maybe there's limiting how much you can text back and forth, but you see there in a group of people talking, and you feel left out.
Many hearing people assume that if you're deaf, you cannot read, you cannot think, you cannot drive a car. But that's all incorrect, because, you're deaf, not stupid. So I think that's ridiculous, because all you cannot do is hear. Aside from that, we're equal in every way. Everyone speaks their own language, and deaf people speak their own language as well. Deaf people in Canada speak American Sign Language, because that's the universal signing language they have across North America. So if I speak Russian, that's what I speak, that's my language. If you speak French, that's what you speak, that's your language. And people are bilingual, and there are people that are deaf, and there's so many people that speak so many different languages, and if you don't understand that, we have closed captions to help you out. So ASL is also a language. A lot of hearing people think that ASL is not a language, and it's just gang signs or something for fun, but it's real language. It's a true language people speak and use to communicate every single day. It's a language just like English. What you speak every day is your language.